My name is Mark, and my life took an unexpected turn when a simple mistake led to an affair I never imagined possible. It all started with a single text message. I was in my office, working late and feeling lonely. My wife Anna was away on a business trip and I missed her dearly. In a moment of longing, I decided to send her a romantic message, but my fingers betrayed me and instead of Anna's name, I typed Martha, my mother-in-law. Martha was a striking woman in her mid-50s, with a timeless beauty that had always made her the subject of admiration. Her dark hair, streaked with silver, framed a face that was still radiant and alluring. She had a warmth and kindness that drew people to her, and her laughter could light up a room. I always respected and admired her, but I never thought of her in any way beyond that. The message I sent was simple, but laden with desire. I miss you so much. I can't wait to hold you in my arms again, to feel your body close to mine. As soon as I hit send, I realized my mistake. Panic set in, and I frantically tried to recall the message, but it was too late. My heart raced as I waited for her response, dreading the inevitable fallout. Minutes felt like hours, and then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Martha. "Mark, I think you sent this to the wrong person, but thank you. It's been a long time since anyone expressed such feelings for me." I was mortified. How could I face her after this? I quickly typed an apology, explaining the mistake and assuring her it was meant for Anna. But Martha's next message took me by surprise. "It's okay, Mark. Everyone makes mistakes. Let's just forget about it. But thank you for making me feel appreciated." Relief washed over me, but it was mixed with a strange excitement. There was something in her tone that I couldn't quite place, something that lingered in my mind long after our conversation ended. The next few days were awkward, but life went on. Anna returned from her trip and we fell back into our routine. Yet I couldn't shake the memory of that text and the way Martha had responded. A week later, Anna and I were invited to a family dinner at Martha's house. As we arrived, I felt a knot in my stomach. Martha greeted us warmly, her smile as genuine as ever. But when she looked at me, there was a spark in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Was it my imagination or had something changed between us? Throughout the evening, I found myself stealing glances at Martha. She moved with a grace that was mesmerizing, her laughter contagious. I couldn't help but feel drawn to her in a way I had never experienced before. When our eyes met, there was a connection, an unspoken understanding that passed between us. It was subtle, but it was there. After dinner, Anna went to chat with her sister, leaving me alone with Martha in the kitchen. The air was thick with tension as we cleaned up together. I could feel her presence, the warmth of her body close to mine. It was intoxicating. "Mark," she said softly, breaking the silence. "About that message, I want you to know it made me feel special. It's been a long time since anyone has shown me such affection." I turned to her, my heart pounding. "Martha, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. I never meant to make you uncomfortable." She smiled, her eyes softening. "You didn't make me uncomfortable. In fact, it was quite the opposite. It made me realize how much I've been missing that kind of attention." Her words hung in the air, charged with a meaning that sent a shiver down my spine. I didn't know what to say, how to respond. My mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Before I could speak, Martha stepped closer, her hand brushing against mine. "Mark, I know this is complicated, but I can't stop thinking about that message. It awakened something in me." Her touch was electric, and I felt a surge of desire that I couldn't control. I knew this was wrong, but in that moment I didn't care. The pull between us was undeniable, and I was helpless to resist it. "Martha," I whispered, my voice trembling. I don't know what to say." She moved even closer, her lips just inches from mine. "You don't have to say anything, Mark. Just be with me." Her words were a plea, a desperate yearning that mirrored my own. In that moment, all reason fled, and I closed the distance between us, capturing her lips in a passionate kiss. It was a kiss filled with longing, with a hunger that had been building for days, months, maybe even years. As we pulled apart, breathless and flushed, I knew that our lives would never be the same. We had crossed a line, one that we could never uncross. But in that moment, all I could think about was how much I wanted her, how much I needed her. "Mark," she murmured, her voice filled with a mix of fear and desire. "What are we going to do?" I looked into her eyes, seeing the same turmoil that I felt. "I don't know, Martha, but I can't deny what I feel for you. We have to figure this out." And so, our affair began, born out of a simple mistake and fueled by a passion that neither of us could ignore. It was the start of something dangerous, something forbidden, but it was also the beginning of a journey that would change us both forever. The following days were a blur of conflicting emotions. I was filled with a mix of guilt, excitement, and anticipation. Whenever I saw Martha, whether it was at family gatherings or in passing, my heart would race, and my mind would replay that night over and over again. Anna remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Our life continued as normal, but I found myself distracted, my thoughts constantly drifting back to Martha. The stolen glances, the brief touches, each moment was a tantalizing reminder of what had begun between us. A week after our first kiss, I found myself at Martha's house again. Anna had asked me to drop off some groceries, and I seized the opportunity to see her. As I knocked on the door, my pulse quickened. Martha opened it, her eyes lighting up when she saw me. "Mark, come in," she said, her voice soft and inviting. I stepped inside, the familiar warmth of her home wrapping around me. As soon as the door closed, Martha turned to me, her expression serious. "We need to talk." I nodded, my heart pounding. "I know, this is complicated." She led me to the living room where we sat down on the couch. The silence between us was heavy, filled with unspoken words. Finally, she spoke. "Mark, I've been thinking a lot about what happened, about us." I swallowed hard, the tension in the room palpable. "Me too. I can't stop thinking about you, Martha, but this is wrong. We both know that." She reached out, her hand covering mine. The simple touch sent a jolt of electricity through me. "I know, but I can't help how I feel, and I know you feel it too." I looked into her eyes, seeing the same conflict that I felt. "What are we going to do?" Martha took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around mine. "We have to be careful. No one can know about this. Not Anna, not anyone." Her words were a stark reminder of the risk we were taking. But despite the danger, I couldn't deny the pull between us. "I understand, but how do we move forward?" She leaned closer, her voice a whisper. "We take it one day at a time, we be careful, and we don't let anyone suspect a thing." As she spoke, I felt a mix of fear and excitement. The forbidden nature of our relationship only made it more intoxicating. I nodded, my resolve strengthening. "Okay, one day at a time." Martha's eyes softened and she smiled, a look of relief washing over her face. "Thank you, Mark. I needed to hear that." In that moment, all the tension seemed to melt away, replaced by a sense of understanding and shared purpose. We had made a pact, a silent agreement to navigate this treacherous path together. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of secret meetings and stolen moments. We found ways to be together without arousing suspicion. A lunch here, a late-night conversation there. Each encounter was filled with passion and a desperate need to be close to one another. One afternoon, I found myself alone with Martha at her house. Anna was out with friends, and I had managed to find an excuse to visit. As soon as I walked through the door, Martha was there, pulling me into a passionate kiss. Our bodies pressed together, the intensity of our desire overwhelming. We stumbled towards the bedroom, shedding clothes along the way. As we fell onto the bed, our lips never parted, our hands exploring each other with a hunger that couldn't be sated. "Mark," she gasped, her breath hot against my skin. "I need you." Her words sent a shiver down my spine, and I responded with a fervor that matched her own. Our bodies moved in perfect harmony, the connection between us deeper than anything I had ever experienced. It was raw, intense, and completely consuming. Afterwards, we lay in each other's arms, our breathing slowly returning to normal. I looked into Martha's eyes, seeing a mix of contentment and vulnerability. "What are we doing, Martha?" she sighed, resting her head on my chest. "I don't know, Mark, but I can't stop. I don't want to stop." Her words echoed my own feelings. Despite the guilt and the fear, I couldn't imagine ending what we had started. The bond between us was too strong, too powerful to ignore. As we lay there, wrapped in each other's embrace, I knew that this was just the beginning. Our affair was like a fire, burning brightly and consuming everything in its path. And as much as I tried to convince myself that we could control it, deep down, I knew that we were playing with something dangerous. But in that moment, with Martha in my arms, none of that mattered. All I could think about was her and the way she made me feel. And for now, that was enough. The days turned into weeks, and our secret affair continued to blossom, hidden beneath the veneer of normalcy. Martha and I grew bolder, our rendezvous more frequent and intense. Each stolen moment was a thrilling blend of danger and desire, and our connection deepened with every encounter. One evening, Anna and I were invited to a family barbecue at Martha's house. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the backyard as everyone gathered around the grill. The air was filled with the scent of grilled meat, and laughter echoed through the yard. I watched Martha move among the guests, her smile radiant and her laughter genuine. No one would have suspected the secret we shared. As the evening wore on, I found myself alone on the back porch, nursing a beer and lost in thought. Martha joined me, her presence a comforting familiarity. She stood close, her shoulder brushing against mine, and for a moment we were just two people enjoying a quiet evening together. "Mark," she said softly, her voice barely audible over the chatter from inside. "I've been thinking, maybe we should talk about where this is going." I turned to look at her, my heart pounding. "What do you mean?" She sighed, her eyes reflecting the same mixture of desire and conflict that I felt. "This thing between us, it's getting harder to hide, and I don't want to hurt Anna, but I also can't stop thinking about you." I reached out, taking her hand in mine. The touch was electric as always, but it also grounded me. "I know, Martha. I feel the same way. But what can we do? We can't just walk away from this." She squeezed my hand, her grip firm. "I don't want to walk away, Mark, but we need to be smart. We need to make sure we don't get caught." The sound of footsteps approaching made us pull apart quickly. Anna appeared, a bright smile on her face. "There you are. I was wondering where you'd gone. Mom, can I borrow Mark for a second? I need help with the cooler." Martha's smile was warm and genuine, hiding the turmoil beneath. "Of course, dear. He's all yours." I followed Anna inside, my mind racing. The tension of balancing my feelings for both women was becoming almost unbearable, but the thrill of our secret was also intoxicating, and I knew I couldn't give it up. Later that night, after the guests had left and Anna had fallen asleep, I received a text from Martha. "Can you come over? I need to see you." My heart raced as I read the message. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Anna, and quietly left the house. Martha lived just a few blocks away, and I walked quickly, the cool night air doing little to calm my nerves. When I arrived, Martha was waiting for me on the porch. She pulled me inside, her lips meeting mine in a passionate kiss. The urgency in her touch mirrored my own, and we stumbled to the living room, our hands roaming each other's bodies. "Mark," she gasped as we fell onto the couch, our clothes quickly discarded. "I need you, now." Our bodies moved together in a frenzy of passion, each touch igniting a fire within us. It was a dance of desperation and desire, our need for each other consuming everything else. As we reached the peak of our shared pleasure, I held her close, the intensity of our connection overwhelming. Afterwards, we lay together, our bodies tangled and our breathing heavy. I looked into her eyes, seeing a mix of satisfaction and fear. "Martha, what are we doing? This can't go on forever." She sighed, resting her head on my chest. "I know, Mark, but I can't imagine my life without you now. You've become a part of me." Her words echoed my own feelings. The thought of ending our affair was unbearable, but the risk of continuing was equally daunting. We were trapped in a web of our own making, and there seemed to be no way out. In the weeks that followed, we became even more careful, our secret meetings meticulously planned to avoid suspicion. But the strain was starting to show. Anna noticed my distraction, and Martha's anxiety grew with each passing day. The thrill of our affair was now tinged with a constant undercurrent of fear. One night, after a particularly tense family dinner, I received another text from Martha. "I need to talk to you, it's important." I slipped out of the house once again, my mind racing with possibilities. When I arrived, Martha was waiting, her expression serious. She pulled me inside, closing the door behind us. "Mark," she said, her voice trembling, "I can't do this anymore. The lying, the sneaking around, it's tearing me apart." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. "Martha, what are you saying?" She took a deep breath, tears glistening in her eyes. "I love you, Mark, but I can't keep living like this. It's not fair to Anna, and it's not fair to us." I felt a surge of panic. The thought of losing her was unbearable. "Martha, please, we can find a way to make this work." She shook her head, her tears spilling over. "No, Mark, we can't. We need to end this before it destroys everything." Her words hung in the air, a painful truth that neither of us wanted to face. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tightly as she cried. The reality of our situation was finally sinking in, and it was a bitter pill to swallow. As we stood there, wrapped in each other's embrace, I knew that our time together was running out. The affair that had started with a simple mistake was now threatening to unravel our lives completely. And despite the love we shared, I knew that we had to make a choice. The following days were filled with a heavy sense of dread. The realization that our affair was unsustainable had cast a shadow over every moment we shared. Martha and I tried to carry on as if everything was normal, but the weight of our secret was becoming too much to bear. One evening, after a particularly tense family dinner, Anna suggested that we all go to the cabin for the weekend. It was a place where we often went to unwind and spend quality time together. The idea of being in such close quarters with Martha, under Anna's watchful eye, filled me with both excitement and fear. I agreed, knowing that this trip could very well be the breaking point for us all. The drive up to the cabin was filled with awkward silences and forced conversations. Anna was in high spirits, oblivious to the tension between Martha and me. When we finally arrived, the familiar sight of the cabin brought a mix of nostalgia and anxiety. We settled in, and the first night passed uneventfully. But the tension between Martha and I was palpable. Every touch, every glance was charged with an unspoken intensity. We knew that this could be our last chance to be together, and the thought was almost unbearable. On the second night after Anna had gone to bed, I found myself unable to sleep. I slipped out of the room and found Martha in the living room, staring into the flickering flames of the fireplace. She looked up as I approached, her eyes filled with a mix of longing and despair. "Mark," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know if I can do this anymore." I sat down beside her, taking her hand in mine. The warmth of her touch was a stark contrast to the cold fear that gripped my heart. "Martha, we have to find a way. I can't imagine my life without you." She shook her head, tears glistening in her eyes. "I know, Mark, but this is tearing me apart. I love you, but I can't keep lying to Anna. It's not fair to her, and it's not fair to us." Her words were a painful reminder of the reality we were facing. The affair that had once been thrilling and passionate was now a burden that was becoming too heavy to bear. "What do we do, Martha? How do we move forward?" She took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around mine. "We need to end this, Mark. Before it destroys everything, we have to let go." The thought of ending our relationship was like a knife to my heart, but deep down I knew she was right. The love we shared was undeniable, but the cost of continuing our affair was too high. "I don't want to lose you, Martha." Her tears spilled over and she leaned into me, her body shaking with sobs. "I don't want to lose you either, Mark, but we have to think about Anna. She doesn't deserve this." As we held each other, the fire crackling softly in the background, the weight of our decision settled over us. We knew what had to be done, but the pain of letting go was almost too much to bear. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy heart. The cabin, once a place of joy and relaxation, now felt like a prison. I went outside to clear my head, needing some space to process everything. As I stood by the lake, the cool breeze blowing through the trees, I heard footsteps behind me. It was Martha. She walked up to me, her expression somber. "Mark, I've made a decision. I'm going to tell Anna." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. "Martha, no, we can't. It will destroy her." She shook her head, her eyes filled with determination. "She deserves the truth, Mark. We can't keep living this lie. It's not fair to her, and it's not fair to us." I felt a surge of panic. The thought of Anna finding out about our affair was terrifying, but I also knew that Martha was right. We couldn't keep living a lie. "What will you say?" She sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I don't know, but I have to be honest with her. She deserves that much." As we stood there, the reality of our situation finally sinking in, I felt a sense of resignation. This was the end of our affair, and there was no way to avoid the pain that would follow. But I also knew that it was the right thing to do. When we returned to the cabin, Martha asked Anna to go for a walk with her. I watched them leave, my heart heavy with dread. The wait was agonizing, each minute stretching into an eternity. I paced the cabin, my mind racing with thoughts of what was being said. Finally, they returned. Anna's face was pale, her eyes red from crying. She looked at me, her expression a mix of hurt and disbelief. "Mark, is it true?" I felt a lump in my throat, the guilt and shame overwhelming. "Yes, Anna, it's true. I'm so sorry." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "How could you do this to me? To us?" Her pain was like a dagger to my heart. I had betrayed the woman I loved, and there was no way to undo the damage. "I'm sorry, Anna. I never meant to hurt you." She turned away, unable to look at me. Martha stood beside her, her own face streaked with tears. "Anna, please. I'm so sorry." Anna took a deep breath, her voice trembling. "I need some time. I need to think." With that, she walked away, leaving Martha and me standing there, our hearts shattered. The affair that had once been our secret had now come crashing down, leaving a trail of pain and heartbreak in its wake. As we stood there, the enormity of what we had done finally sank in. We had crossed a line, and there was no going back. The love we had shared was now tainted by the pain we had caused, and we knew that our lives would never be the same again. The aftermath of our revelation was a slow, agonizing unraveling. Anna's pain was palpable, her eyes haunted by the betrayal she had uncovered. She distanced herself from both Martha and me, needing time to process the enormity of what had happened. The once warm and loving home became a cold, silent place filled with tension and regret. I moved into the guest room, giving Anna the space she needed. Each day felt like walking on a knife's edge, the guilt weighing heavily on my shoulders. Conversations were minimal and strained, the air thick with unresolved emotions. Martha and I continued to see each other, but our encounters were different now, tainted by the knowledge that our actions had caused so much pain. We met in secret, our passion subdued by the heavy cloak of guilt that hung over us. We talked endlessly, trying to make sense of the mess we had created. One evening, as we sat in her living room, Martha looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Mark, I don't think we can keep doing this. It's destroying us, and it's destroying Anna." I felt a lump in my throat, the reality of her words sinking in. "I know, Martha, but what are we supposed to do? I can't just turn off my feelings for you." She sighed, her expression filled with sadness. "Neither can I. But we have to let go for Anna's sake. She deserves better than this." Her words echoed the truth that I'd been trying to avoid. Our affair had been a whirlwind of passion and desire, but it had also brought pain and destruction. As much as it hurt, I knew that ending it was the only way to begin to heal the wounds we had caused. "I don't know how to say goodbye to you," I whispered, my voice trembling with emotion. Martha reached out, taking my hand in hers. "We'll always have what we shared, Mark, but it's time to move on. We have to find a way to make things right, even if it means letting go." We held each other for a long time, the weight of our decisions settling over us like a shroud. When we finally pulled apart, it felt like a part of me was being ripped away. But deep down, I knew it was the right thing to do. The next few days were a blur of painful goodbyes and heart-wrenching realizations. I watched as Anna tried to piece her life back together, her strength and resilience both inspiring and heartbreaking. She was distant, but I could see that she was trying to find a way forward, even if it meant without me. One evening, as we sat in silence over dinner, Anna finally spoke. "Mark, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I don't know if I can ever fully forgive you, but I also don't want to live my life in anger and resentment." Her words were like a lifeline, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. "Anna, I am so sorry for everything. I want to make things right, whatever it takes." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of hurt and determination. "We need time apart, Mark. I need to figure out who I am without you, and you need to do the same. Maybe one day we can find a way to move past this, but for now, we need to be apart." The thought of being without her was devastating, but I knew she was right. We needed to heal, and that meant giving each other space. "I understand, Anna. I'll do whatever you need." We decided that I would move out for a while, giving her the time and space she needed. Packing my things was a painful process, each item a reminder of the life we had built together. As I loaded the last of my bags into the car, Anna stood on the porch, watching silently. "I'll always love you, Anna," I said, my voice choked with emotion. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know, Mark. I just hope that one day we can find a way to be okay again." With a heavy heart, I drove away, leaving behind the life I had known. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, but I knew it was the only way to begin to make things right. Martha and I stayed in touch, but our conversations were more about closure and moving on than rekindling our affair. We both knew that our time together had come to an end, and that it was time to face the consequences of our actions. In the quiet of my new apartment, I spent a lot of time reflecting on everything that had happened, the love, the mistakes, the pain. It was a journey that had changed me in ways I couldn't fully understand yet, but I knew that I had to take responsibility for my actions and find a way to move forward. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was determined to make amends, to heal the wounds I had caused, and to find a way to rebuild my life. It was the only way to honor the love I had for Anna and to make peace with the past. Months passed, and the chill of winter gave way to the warm bloom of spring. Life slowly began to take on a new rhythm, one that was marked by solitude and introspection. Living alone was an adjustment, but it gave me the space I needed to reflect on my mistakes and the path forward. Anna and I maintained a cautious distance. We spoke occasionally, mostly about practical matters and shared responsibilities. There was a cautious civility between us, a fragile truce born from mutual pain and an unspoken understanding that healing would take time. One sunny afternoon, as I was unpacking groceries in my apartment, my phone buzzed with a message from Anna. It was a simple request to meet at our favorite cafe. My heart raced as I read the message. This could be a step towards reconciliation, or it could be the final conversation where we agreed to part ways for good. When I arrived at the cafe, Anna was already there, sitting at a table by the window. She looked beautiful, a calm resolve in her eyes that I hadn't seen before. I took a deep breath and walked over to her, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hi, Anna," I said, taking a seat across from her. She looked up, her expression neutral. "Hi, Mark, thanks for meeting me." There was a moment of silence as we both gathered our thoughts. Finally, Anna spoke. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything that's happened, and I want you to know that I've decided to move forward with the divorce." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I had been expecting it. I nodded, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I understand, Anna. I just want you to be happy." She gave a small, sad smile. "I want that for both of us. I think we need a fresh start, away from all the pain and betrayal." We talked for a while longer, discussing the logistics of the divorce and how we would divide our assets. It was a painful conversation, but it was also necessary. As we spoke, I felt a sense of finality settling over me. This was the end of our marriage, but perhaps it was also the beginning of a new chapter for both of us. After our meeting, I walked back to my apartment, the weight of our conversation heavy on my shoulders. The reality of the divorce was sinking in, and while it was painful, there was also a sense of relief. We were both moving towards a new future, one that was free from the shadows of our past. Martha and I stayed in touch, but our interactions were now more like those of old friends rather than lovers. We had both come to terms with the end of our affair, understanding that it was a chapter that had to close for us to move on. She had rekindled some old friendships and was focusing on her own healing journey, much like I was. One evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, my phone rang. It was Martha. I answered, and we talked for a while, reminiscing about the good times, but also acknowledging the pain we had caused. "Mark," she said softly, "I just wanted to say thank you for everything. Despite how it ended, I'm grateful for the time we shared. It helped me realize things about myself that I needed to face." I smiled, a sense of closure washing over me. "I feel the same way, Martha. We both made mistakes, but I think we've grown because of them. I wish you all the best." As we said our goodbyes, I felt a sense of peace. The chapter with Martha had closed, and I was ready to move forward. I had learned a lot about myself, about love, and about the consequences of my actions. It was a painful journey, but it was one that had ultimately led me to a place of understanding and acceptance. The months turned into a year, and slowly, life began to rebuild itself. I found solace in new hobbies, made new friends, and even started dating again. It was a cautious, slow process, but I was determined to approach my future relationships with honesty and integrity. One day, while walking through a park, I ran into Anna. She was walking her dog, and she looked happy, truly happy. We chatted for a bit, catching up on each other's lives. She told me about her new job and the new hobbies she had picked up. I could see that she had found her own path to healing. As we parted ways, I felt a sense of closure. Our relationship had ended, but we had both found a way to move forward. It was a bittersweet moment, but it was also a testament to our resilience and our capacity to grow from our mistakes. Looking back on everything, I realized that the affair with Martha, as painful as it had been, had taught me invaluable lessons about love, honesty, and the consequences of our actions. It had been a tumultuous journey, but it had also been a path to self-discovery and growth. As I continued walking through the park, the sun setting in the distance, I felt a sense of peace and hope for the future. I had faced my mistakes, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. It was the start of a new chapter, and this time I was determined to write it with honesty and integrity.